Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager episode 104. We're reaching the end of the season, and I'm really starting to think about the end game calculations for the current season. Not the end game, as in we're ending the game, because I can't wait to get to next season to see these regulation changes, though I'm feeling pretty good about how I think we're setting up for next year. But I want to see the drastic change with the new regulations. So we're absolutely getting to next season, even though we do know that the game release is 6 weeks away. Whew. Okay, well that's a lot of work to do in 6 weeks to get the rest of this season and the next season in before the release of F1 Manager 23. Okay, well anyway, back to the task at hand. This season's end game so that we can wrap things up quickly. Okay, well, first off, Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. Those are the two things that we need to wrap up for this season. Nothing more, nothing less. Porsche, never mind doing. Porsche is 97 points ahead of Verstappen. That's roughly, not exact, but that's roughly a 4-race cushion. 5 to go. He's got that just about wrapped up. Just about, but not quite. Constructors is a different matter. And actually, even that Drivers' Championship is slightly a different matter. For one thing, that the bottom three definitely tail off. The midfield, Alpine down to Mercedes, they're all in that 100 points range. Now, there are certainly gaps. And Mercedes, Alfa Romeo in particular, Mercedes. Did I say Mercedes? What? Where did that come? Anyway, Mercedes, McLaren. I'm rushing here, folks. I'm. The wheels are turning, and the mice, they're hungry. Anyway, there's gaps. Okay, Mercedes, Alfa Romeo, definitely further off. Alpine, Ferrari, McLaren, definitely closer together. Anyway, they're not a threat. Okay, it's over 300 points to Alpine. They're not a threat, but Red Bull is still in touching distance. As much as 149-point advantage is significant, it's not enough, especially when we look at the sporting regulations for this year, not next year, ignore next year, but for this year. Okay, a 1-2 finish plus pole, fastest lap, 45 points for a team for finishing 1-2 and dominating the affair. 2 cars crash into each other in DNF. We've seen that. 0 points, 45 points. Okay, 45 points on offer. 150-point cushion. That's a three race cushion. Except double points for the last race. So really, we only have a last race plus 1 race cushion right now. We've got a ways to go yet before we are secure for a constructors. And actually, even the drivers. Our 4-race cushion, not so. Double points for last race, it's really only a 3-race cushion. And then the team only has the 2-race cushion, not the 3-race cushion. So we got a ways to go yet to wrap things up. But speaking of, we've got just under 3 weeks until we head to Singapore, Marina Bay, and can't wait. Let's get to it. We want to get at least double races for each and every episode the rest of this season if we're going to have any chance of getting the entirety of next season in. And it looks like we're going to have to go double races next season as well if we're going to wrap this up before the release of 23. You might have noticed we had the red. The red was on a regulation vote. It's about financial changes for next season and regarding cost cap. Once again, they want to bump the cost cap up. They want to spend more money. I've noticed keeping within the cost cap has not been a problem for us, so I'm gonna vote against it. Suspension research complete. We're gonna get our next project on the go right away. Also, a quick check-in on how we're doing in terms of research projects. And I think my estimate is it takes roughly 10 projects to cover off that major loss in everything but the front wing. Front wing's going to take even more, but how much more, I'm not sure. It's an extra 20%, but you're covering that gap a little faster as you're starting at a lower point, and it makes up more ground early than it does late. It also, each part is a little different because it depends on the start point, and the underfloor was great, the chassis was not. Chassis, we're on project number 1. Front wing, we've already got 2 done, and we're on project number 3. The rear wing has 2 complete, the side pods have 1 complete. The underfloor is on number 2, and the suspension has 1. So we've got a couple that are sitting on 1, and we've got a single one that's already at 2, and have absolutely been my focal point. And so we'll continue to go. When available, always take the most impactful aerodynamic ones, and then filtering in the other 3 as we kind of go along. Using half of my remaining time, I allot 4 projects. This is project number 3 for this period. We've got 46 days left till the end of the current period. And you can see for this 3rd project, we're picking up another 5%, now getting us at 14 of 39% coverage, or at least in that one area. It equates to about the same as you go down through downforce and whatnot. So at a 0.3 kilonewtons of the 0.72, definitely not quite halfway. This rear wing looks like it wouldn't quite take 10 to get back, but again, there's going to be diminishing returns as you go through project by project, or at least one would assume there should be diminishing returns, right? Well, how many straight votes have we had go to a tiebreaker? The regulation change will go through, as it was 5-5. I added 1 point to Pourchaire, and he hits 83. I'm wondering, because I think they might be level now. I also have a point available for Doohan. Let's see. Are they level with one another? They are. So they have now caught up. Pourchaire and Doohan are and man, words today. Pourchaire and Doohan are at an identical stage right now, both hitting 83 at the exact same time. Now, of course, I expect that now Pourchaire will hit 84 fractionally, marginally before Doohan does, as he overtakes him with higher potential. But of course, the more he catches up, the more he overtakes, the lower his potential ultimately will be. But Pourchaire clearly has that higher edge, a higher growth rate than what Doohan does. Doohan still not quite yet to the 90 on the braking, but those mistakes really should be cutting down for these two guys now. Sargent, only a 78 for him, still playing catch up, but now 79. Underfloor research project complete. So we have one more for the current phase. We'll get in and get that done. Last year, Singapore was a 1-2, and we've had a lot of good results here. We were a couple seconds ahead of the Ferraris behind us. We'll see what we can do on this year. We definitely have the car to be competitive, but remember, we've finally reached that stage where there are still teams putting upgrades onto this year's car. We no longer have the best car. We are starting to slip off, but we're still at a competitive stage where we're only slightly behind. So results are still certainly possible, and we saw that in the last race. But it is getting harder to continue getting those results. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're not picking up as many wins over these last handful of races, but getting more just podiums, top fives. That's all it really takes. They can close us down by a handful of points every race, and it's no big deal. We've got enough of a cushion. Our main thing is not having these guys DNF, and those braking points that we put into Doohan and Pourchaire are essential. They are massive to whether they're going to perform or not.
We're here at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, and the Singapore Grand Prix is just about to start. The name Singapore means City of Lions, and this weekend Formula One will be roaring into action. The bumpy street surfaces here make this a challenging circuit for the drivers, and the humidity causes them to lose as much as 3 kilos over the course of a race. But it's also
Verstappen coming out right in our way, and Magnussen coming out right in our way. This is going to make our lap tricky. Doohan, I think, is okay. Pourchaire catches Verstappen at an okay point. What about Doohan? I think we'll be okay on the lap times. This is our first run here of Q3. Verstappen very much held up Albon there, and Doohan, I think, lucks out. But now Albon is kind of holding up Doohan. He's going to get caught in that dirty air. I think he's going to be hurt more through those corners following him. Doohan is purple in that third sector for the time being as a result, and actually only 2/10 behind Pourchaire, so maybe he actually did benefit from it. Got a little bit of a toe off of Albon. Albon's got a terrible time, though, as he was very much held up by Verstappen. Times aren't great, though. Pourchaire's well down there. Verstappen, of course, ends up getting held up, trying to go back past three of us. On board with Pourchaire as we begin that final flying lap with a lot of work to do. Pourchaire only 7th right now, Doohan only 5th, but we do have the fresh compound. One thing we don't have this race weekend, which could make the win significantly tougher for us, is that I put our weaker engine that's still in circulation, only mid-70s in terms of percentage. So our engine is definitely down on power compared to what it could or should be. ERS also down on power a little bit from what it could or should be. What we do have is the best gearbox that I could put in either car. Now, I'd love to take penalties and, make your way through, as neither car has been quick here in this run. Ouch on that part. This could be a really bad start for us. Pourchaire and Doohan, neither one improved their lap time with the fresh set. Well, that hurts. There are 3 cars just ahead of us, though, that are on penalties, so Doohan should move up to 4th. Pourchaire should move up to 6th, and that's more important than taking penalty right now and seeing ourselves go backwards. Grid position certainly matters here. It's Magnussen and Lando Norris who are going to start on the front row.
A partly clear night here. The drivers now lined up on the grid. Here's Williams. A top 10 position today, but will they be able to capitalize on it? And looking at the second Williams car. They're in the front half of the pack, so there's plenty of potential for them. Everything's been building to this. We're just moments away from the Singapore Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
We might not have the greatest starting positions, but we are in a good position relative to the Red Bulls, just behind them, really. And off the line, Doohan from his P4 starting position is already challenging ahead of him. He is 3 wide. Let's watch from the middle as he tries to squeeze through into second place. Wow, that is a fantastic start by Doohan there.
Good job, good job.
And he's done it. He is up to P2. Let's go ahead and settle in for him.
Lift and coast level 3.
Split strategy. So we're going soft to medium here with Doohan, and we're extending our stay on the softs for a while. Pourchaire, meanwhile, has made up 2 positions himself, is up to P6, and then goes around the outside of the McLaren of Sainz and is already up to P5 and now behind Russell, the same car that Doohan was behind just moments ago himself. Now, the split strategy here is soft to hard. We're going to pit earlier with Pourchaire. Now, the reason for this strategy call was that I figured we were going to be further back. Pourchaire has already made up 3 positions. Doohan's already made up 2 positions. And we find ourselves in an ideal position to challenge Russell here. And I'm going to continue to push to challenge because Pourchaire, either way, whether I change strategy and mimic Doohan but just pit a couple laps sooner, or if we still go softs to hards, either way, it's going to involve pushing and trying to make up some positions now for this first stint as we go up the inside of Russell. This is good, folks. This is good. We're going to have the inside position here for 1 and 3. We're still side by side, still battling it out, but we have gained the position and we pull in front of Russell and now sit P2 and P4 with Magnussen in front and Norris in third.
Just gained by Williams.
This has quickly become an ideal scenario for us. We're going to continue to push on a little bit longer with Pourchaire and see if we can't get from P4 up to P3 and challenge, well, not challenge, settle in behind our teammate. That's the aim. That's the target now. We'll see if we can make up that kind of ground and get forward. And we already squeeze up the inside, but not a good place for an overtake. Here's the other place where you, oh, this is the right position to get into. Get up the inside there. And Pourchaire gets around Norris into P3. Exactly what we wanted to have happen. Go ahead and go neutral. Go ahead and go standard. And now this is already set to be driving aggressive. Now we don't need to drive aggressive. It's going to help prolong the life of those tires quite a bit. And we will, as we get Norris potentially out of DRS range. Sainz is out of range. But Verstappen gets around as a result, the DRS. Alright, we need to speed things up, folks. That's how this one's gonna work. 0.5 of a kilogram is what we used up there. That's gonna take a while to recover. Doing already challenging Magnussen, nearly got around him.
Alfa Romeo just moved up a place.
Yellow in sector 1.
Verstappen turn 7.
Safety car's coming out. Safety car is coming out. It's not time to pit yet. Way too early for that.
Sounds like there's been contact.
I believe
Here's the replay. Let's have another look.
One of the Red Bulls was involved in this. Sainz in the McLaren, and I believe that is Verstappen. Oh, it's not Sainz that caused it. It's Verstappen who went straight into the wall and then bounced back onto the track. Verstappen is out of the race. It was Verstappen.
Follow your delta and you'll be safe.
Already, this race
DRS
has
is currently disabled. DRS is currently disabled.
gone in a tremendously good way for us. Not pushing on the restart. Pourchaire has recovered his fuel. Let's hope we can hold off Norris here. And we do. I don't care about overtaking Magnussen at this point. He sets the tempo, makes life easy on us. So we're going to speed things up with the field bunched up once again. But we sit P2, P3, which is a great spot to be in. Pourchaire didn't get fully battery charged. He didn't get fully recovered on the fuel, but he's back to neutral. And he certainly didn't get fully recovered on the tires either, but he's only 3% behind his teammate.
You would have DRS.
Oh, Pourchaire. Pourchaire, what's going on here? Over a second down on his teammate.
Reduce the lift and core.
Gotta close that up a little bit. His components are a little weaker than what Doohan has here, but at 1.4 behind. That's not good. Magnus 1.5. It keeps going out with the DRS as Doohan closes up on Magnussen, but then backs off. 1.1. 1.0. There you go. Inside a second for a fraction of a second there. It's hovering, but it looks like we've covered it. And we nearly have Norris out of DRS, but not quite.
Fastest lap.
Pourchaire sets the new fastest lap. Now, extending. Let's go deploy for a second.
Make sure
Norris, over a second behind. Back to neutral. We'll see if we've effectively got him out of range. Big splits in the field already. Perez is 3 seconds behind. Norris, 1.1. He's hovering the way we were. And he's closed it down to 0.5. But Perez now 3.4 behind. Gasly's 2.3 behind. So Mercedes a little bit off pace, a little bit out of the points. Haas also 3.5 behind, not able to keep up with the pace of those in front of them. So the field will start to spread out again here on lap 13. Some drivers will pit fairly soon to go for the hard compound. Who all is on soft? The entire top 10, the mediums. Now you see why Mercedes is not quite on the pace, as they started on mediums. They're probably going medium to hard. And the first pits are happening. Leclerc, Latifi, Stroll all dive off into the pits to put on the hards early. They are going to try to go to the end on that. They are worried about track position, those three right now.
Gain.
The front six dive off. There you go. Quite a few more cars. 5 more cars into the pits this time. Led by Norris and Russell.
And there's an overtake from Williams.
Norris and Russell have opted for the mediums. That's a long ways out to be on the mediums already. Quite a few of those guys are on the mediums. Magnussen, Schumacher. Those guys are going to need a safety car pit stop at some point to get some clean air. Doohan and Porsche are on top now. But Magnussen pit. So we're down to 10 cars that have yet to pit, right? Oh, Sainz already pit. Oh, right. Sainz already pit because of the accident. Guan Yu Zhou. Didn't expect him to be able to get into clean air. I didn't expect him to be on Doohan's gearbox when I saw that those penalties that Doohan was going to move up to P4, but Porsche was only going to move up 1 spot to P8. That 2 of those penalties, those guys were still going to be placed ahead of him. Once I saw that, that's why I opted for a split strategy. But the moment both of these guys were able to go nose to tail and only have a 3% difference in tire wear, that's where you go, well, Porsche, especially following his teammate, can keep up just fine. And Doohan, pushing here, is gaining a little bit. We're down to now 8 cars. Sainz, of course, will end up having to pit again. He pits so early because of the damage sustained in the Verstappen collision. But Red Bull being down to 1 car is already a massive, massive win for us, regardless of whether extending like this pays off. 54%. We are going to lose some pace here. We are. It is going to cost us some track position. And that means we will have to make overtakes on cars, but it's possible here. We've already seen it. We saw how easily these guys move forward. It's easier in game to overtake here than it is in real life. It's not the hardest track to overtake on by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not the easiest. Competitor crash. We are going to wait. We are going to wait. Whoa! That was close. Red flag. Well, there's your pit stop.
Red flag.
There's your pit stop. We're going to come out in
there.
P1 and P2
So this was the Aston Martin.
on the mediums. Oh, the Aston Martin was already stopped in the middle of the track, and then everybody collided into him, not seeing him coming around the corner. The marshals not doing their job and notifying them of the crash ahead. There was a marshal right there next to him. Didn't see any flags waving.
The restart is moments away as the race continues.
Okay, we're going to have to pause really fast when we start here,
And it's lights out and away we go.
as we're going to be slow off the line. It's Ocon and Gasly behind us. That's beautiful. And Tsunoda and Sainz and Ricciardo and Magnussen and Norris and Zhou until you get to Russell. Okay, Doohan is already out front. And there you go. Porsche is secure with P2. Before we proceed, everybody's on the softs. Those softs aren't going to make it to the end of the race. And they're going to get held up behind us. This is good. This is very good. Debris. Oh, he clipped the inside.
Yeah, me. They won't have been expecting that.
Looked like he clipped the inside anyway. Lost the rear end anyway. So from P1 and P3 now with Porsche down a spot. Ocon haven't got it around him. Russell is P11.
Use DRS.
Porcher struggling to keep up. Ocon has gotten through as well, so we are now P2, P3. And let's speed things up again. Latifi well behind after his crash, but everybody else is still nice and bunched up. And of course, that's largely because we can't seem to pull away. Porcher struggling to keep up. Like I said, he does have some weaker components than what Doohan does. And it's clear he's struggling for pace a little bit today. Lap 31. Remember, everybody's on softs that just are not going to go the distance. Another crash! Yeah, today is the day of the crash. Local yellows is Aldo.
Currently yellow at
Magnussen,
Take a look now.
the latest
Now
crash.
let's watch this. The Alfa Romeo involved.
Trying to overtake. Oof.
And
Ow.
there we see the crash.
That should be a DNF right there. You're losing that left
That's
rear.
going to be a big blow
And
to
the
the
gearbox
team.
from that. Sonoda now 1.7 behind, so us with the Mercedes are pulling away. These guys are all still over 80%. Magnussen 0%, so he got a puncture. He got a puncture out of it, and is slowly making his way around to an almost ideal scenario here. It's us and Mercedes. They're completely out of the points situation. Russell is right around 0 to 1 points, battling 10th, 11th with Leclerc. Gaps are starting to open, so the field is starting to stretch, and all of these guys are on softs, and almost certainly either going to have no pace at the end or we'll have to pit at the end. Whichever scenario you're looking at for that, it's ideal for us. Magnussen finally to the pits. Finally is going to come back out on track just ahead. He's going to... Gasly's 1.7 behind now. Gasly makes a mistake, loses a second. So Gasly has caught back up. We got 20 laps to go. And again, I'm going to start to have a good pace advantage over these guys. And that's when we'll want to get ahead of them and then drive away. There's two spots that overtakes are most likely. We have not been to either one yet since I had him turn up. This was the first one, and we were not in a position there for that one. Also, it's going to be harder. Doohan had the easy job because he had DRS. Now, oh, Porcher goes first place. Overtakes both of them. Overtakes both of them. Well, that's one way to do it.
Williams there gaining several places
All right.
in one go.
Now, what we need to do is we need to drive away from Ocon. We've nearly got him though. 9/10. We're hovering at 8 to 9/10 now. And Doohan gets around. I think Doohan's got a better pace. Doohan with DRS gets around Porcher. And already we see it hover to 1 second briefly. And suddenly the 9 seconds is 11 seconds to Ricciardo. But we are starting to pull away faster. Yeah, he's at 44%. That's why. We're still over 60. Out of DRS range. Fully out of DRS range now. There's definitely no chance that he's getting DRS. But man, oh man, down that straight, did he not just gain half a second? 3.5 seconds to Ocon, so we are pulling further and further away on them. And Porcher from 1/10 under. His fuel load is already back to neutral, but it's still red. It's still the red side of neutral. And there goes more cars into the pits. Albon, Sainz, the softs. Told you, they either aren't going to make it or they're going to fall off massively in the final laps. And we are driving comfortably away. Ricciardo, who was 6 seconds back when we first went around Ocon, is now 14.6. We've driven away from him by 8 seconds already in probably 6 laps or something like that. And now Ocon's already 4 seconds back since we finally got him out of DRS range maybe 3-4 laps ago. Norris, Leclerc into the pits. The field is changing drastically. I wonder what these guys are even putting on. What do they have left to put on? They are putting on softs. They're just heavily used. And these guys are all in the low 30s. Ocon and Gasly have no reason to pit. They have a huge lead over everybody else. In the real world, they would never pit. They would settle for P3, P4, especially with how few points Mercedes have on the season. There is no chance with that kind of gap. I mean, they're 15 seconds ahead of Ricciardo, and Ricciardo has the exact same problem they have. Those who have not pit yet, or those who have, Perez in 9th is the furthest ahead. Perez is 36 seconds back overall. He's half a minute behind. So these guys with 3 laps to go would not pit. Porsche challenging Doohan here. Has used just about used up his battery. That's the advantage that I gave him. It's used up. He's on 0. If he can't hold us off, that's on him. Or if he can't hold Porsche off. I'm just on board with Porsche right now. That's why I say us. But I'm not doing anything for Porsche to push more than he is. Whoa. Whoa.
That's the flag.
There's Latifi. Yeah, there's Latifi. Latifi was just behind us. After he came out just behind us. He had pace but couldn't get around until right at the end. It's a 1-2 finish though. Doohan does hang on, takes the win. Porsche is second. Ocon and Gasly to round out the top 4. Also got up to P2, so he's gonna P9, so he picks up 2 points for Red Bull. That's all they got today. That is a huge swing in the direction of wrapping this thing up sooner rather than later. Porsche gets 18 points on the day, now sits on 298. He is 116 ahead of Verstappen now. That cushion grows. 3, almost 4 races now. So he's nearly got the drivers wrapped up, at least comparatively to some other team challenging for it. And then we are at a much bigger gap. We gained 41 points. We're almost 200 ahead. 190 now ahead of Red Bull in the constructors. So that cushion grows yet further. It is out to, I think, 4 races now. And we're about to be down to the final 5. The scouting department upgrade is complete. I had 2 of those to go, though. The last one is just 5.5 million, which is roughly what we just took home from that race. 94 days to get that complete. That is the final upgrade necessary for all of our facilities. You can see we are completely done in the facilities management, staff facilities. That's the last one. And in the car development facilities, the factory will be done fairly soon. Simulator is getting refurbished, but otherwise it's all done, folks. It's all done. Or it will be done anyway once those last 2 upgrades complete. To Suzuka next. Porsche was second behind Leclerc in the Ferrari last year, less than a second behind him. Couldn't quite get him at the end, but we also just were ahead of Ocon. Doohan was just outside of the points in 11th. I do remember Doohan putting it in the wall, so we'll hope that you can keep it clean this year. For the first time in the entire series, I've gone ahead and skipped straight to the race. I skipped qualifying entirely, and I'm sacrificing this race more or less. I do not think we are going to win this one, as components are in the 70th percentile in both cars, except Porsche's. ERS, which was just in really poor shape, so I went ahead and took a small grid penalty for him. We're looking at light rain for the race, so let's see if Pourchaire can make his way back through the grid. I'm not sure how low he's going to be, but Douin's going to start from P6. Pourchaire, at least a few grid spot penalty. It shouldn't be too far down, maybe P10. The light rain is going to last through most of the race. It starts dry, finishes dry, on intermediates pretty much the entire rest of the time from the looks of it. So our strategy for this one is going to be a 3-stopper with soft. The intermediates won't make it that long, so intermediates halfway through after 18 laps, switching to fresh intermediates, and then softs again. Now, I would suspect a lot of cars are going to pit later, and then they're just going to have the fresh ones. But by spreading this out, we're going to have a much better pace, pitting earlier, than what they're going to have on those last laps. We're going to gain a lot of ground over this stretch, and they're not going to gain much on us here. We're also going to have the ability to push on the softs, as we're not going to be spending that long on them.
The drivers have now taken position on the grid, and it's looking like a cloudy day. Here's Williams. Not as close to the front as they might have wished for, but we know the race order can change a lot during those first few corners. And looking at the second Williams car, they're in the back half of the pack, so they'll need to work hard if they want a podium finish. And we're just moments away now. The drivers are warmed up, they're ready to go here at the Japanese Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
Had a major "are you kidding me" moment. Pourchaire, the grid penalty for replacing the ERS was 10 spots. 10. Bumped him all the way down to 17th. I figured at that point we might as well take the max penalties and set ourselves up for the rest of the season. No more penalties necessary for Pourchaire. We took the engine penalty, we took the gearbox penalty as well, and went 3 spots further back to 20th. So Pourchaire starting from dead last with brand new everything in the car this weekend. He would have been 7th otherwise, but that's okay. Remember, Douin, very much the used stuff, 70 percentile. So for him already gaining position, actually he's not gaining a position, is he? He started 6th, he's just recovered to 6th. And is now challenging Verstappen, but has to tuck back in. Meanwhile, Pourchaire, still last place. I don't want to expend too much fuel here early on, but I don't mind using up tires to try to progress, of course, because we know that rain is coming and we're going to pit fairly soon. Getting Verstappen's a little bit harder, though. That's the one we're trying to get because it's Red Bull 1.5 right now. As we finish our first lap. Leclerc challenging Russell, but not able to get up beside him, just like Douin challenging Verstappen, but unable to get up beside him. And somehow Pourchaire is still P20. We don't have a rocket ship anymore, but we're still about the 3rd quickest car. But the entire field is actually really close competitively at this point. That was why the regulation changes were necessary. There wasn't much more you could get out of the cars. And Douin finally gets up the inside of Verstappen and will pass him. Going neutral, but we'll keep pushing with the tires. And meanwhile, back with Pourchaire. What's going on, buddy? Now we see. Apparently we just needed to move the camera to him, and then he can manage to overtake. Up to P19 for him. It's Russell who crashed. It's Russell, it's the Red Bull, the leader of the race. Ah, there's the spot. And there's that crash. That's what Douin did the last year twice, the year before twice, I think. Is this Douin's 3rd season now, or is it his 2nd? It's his 2nd. He did it twice last year. Actually, didn't they both do it last year? Didn't Pourchaire also make a mistake here? I don't know. Russell's last, though. Russell is last place now. Okay, we're entering that pit window. Pourchaire has closed these guys up, so ease off again. So Doohan sits P4 with Leclerc, Show, Magnussen, Alfa Romeo continue to work on this year's car.
Doing very good. Lap time are good.
Not smart.
Good.
70% chance of rain now in 4 minutes.
So we're expecting more rain.
So not this lap, but probably the next. Might be happening on lap 8 and pitting as we enter lap 9. There's the rain. Rain is beginning to fall. Pit stops coming, but how fast is the rain coming? Is it this lap or the next?
So it's raining, just watch
Point
out.
2. Point 3. Okay, it's going to be way before the end of the next lap. So we are pitting this lap. That is the gamble. That is the gamble. We're going to pit right now. Now, if we're lucky, others are not going to pit yet. But then on that next lap, the conditions will have changed. I mean, look how fast it's to 0.5. One straightaway. We've gone from 0.6 to 0.5 down one straightaway.
Yeah, no
0.06 to 0.56. I mean, we've gained half a millimeter down one straight. By the time we come out of the pits, it's going to be approaching 1, if not already there. So yes, this is the right call. Here we go. Doing first one into the pits. 0.7. 0.8. Pourchaire, second into the pits. Now you can see all the teams coming out, walking out of their garages. 1.0. There you go. It's already time. We have a 1-lap advantage over everybody else. We're not the only ones. Schumacher pit as well. One car got it right besides us. Pushing on the outlap.
Let's reduce lifting close.
How much ground can we make up on 1 lap?
Reduce the lift and cork.
Deploy for Pourchaire. He needs it more. Right now it's P17, P18. Watch that gap come down. Watch that gap come down. It was 10. Now it's 9-2. We've already gained a second. 1.7 now. We've now gained 3 seconds.
Use the rest.
4.5. 5.5. Somebody ran wide, adding to their troubles. 3 seconds behind for Doohan. We need to get with Doohan here as he's catching up to cars. He is catching up to Latifi. 1 second behind, half a second behind. Can he get around? He can. He's not held up. And everybody else will peel off into the pits momentarily.
And there's an overtake from Williams.
Now we're caught up for a moment here, but there you go. Everybody into the pits.
DRS is currently disabled.
Now Doohan should be P1 after this. Make that P5 because not everybody's pit yet. But where is Pourchaire? P6. We're suddenly going to be in 1-2 by pitting at the right time. Ease off. Standard. Doohan's got to try to overtake, so the push is on. These guys did not pit. They're going another lap, which is ridiculous. They're so far off the pace.
Okay, back off.
Doohan goes around Ricardo. And he's coming up on Bottas already.
Please.
Here's Pourchaire up on him. It's his turn to go around. It's allowing the field to bunch up on us a little bit. But we get around Ricardo. Hopefully Ricardo can hold up others. Doohan still not getting around Bottas, even though he should have easily gotten him. And we catch the Ferrari, but the Ferrari's about to peel off into the pits. There you go. The last of the cars peel off into the pits, and we move up P1, P2. Now the question is, where is everybody else? Magnussen, 2.6 behind. Sainz, a further 1.6 behind. And already, Pourchaire challenging Doohan. Now remember, Pourchaire has fresh, brand new everything. So this is his race to win. This is his race to win, not Doohan's. Gap to leader. So we're up front, 2 seconds ahead of Magnussen, 4 seconds ahead of Sainz, 7 ahead of Gasly, 9 ahead of Verstappen, Russell. Things are looking good. Now we will pit earlier than everybody else. 1.25. Is the track going to dry out enough that it's going to go back to dry conditions? Something to keep an eye on. It got down to 1.0, but it did not get below it. Now we're back to 1.5. Magnussen's caught up. Bottas runs wide. Remember, we will pit earlier than others, but they will be off on pace in that time that we've pit until they decide that they're going to pit. And somebody, that's not Norris with the run wide, but somebody has crashed. Alright, so after our push, we find ourselves in 1-2. We've got Magnussen with us. He's very much got pace. Alfa Romeo is quick. They are clearly one of the 2 quickest cars now, but they are sacrificing next year massively for this year's pace. They're so far down the standings that it doesn't matter to us. They've got no chance of catching us. But that means they could challenge for victories here. But all things considered, we're in an amazing position. Pourchaire started dead last, and he is leading this race. Norris pits. 6.5 seconds to Sainz. Gasly and Verstappen starting to bunch up with him. Magnussen with us, and then Ocon at 13. Perez with a bunch starting at 16. Spread out a little bit. There's no DRS. Rain's at 1.38. It's lap 18. Now remember, we will pit for intermediates earlier than everybody else. Let's speed it up until it's time. I'm just hoping that that pit stop will give us some extra pace compared to everybody else for a little while. And that inevitably they all will end up having to pit as well. It's going to get too late on those intermediates to stay out on it. Track a bit more damp than it was. We hit 2 millimeters, but it's nowhere near full wet conditions. Magnussen might have had the pace to catch up to us, but he doesn't have the pace to get around us, so he remains in P3. And Sainz is further back now at 9 seconds, and we're entering that pit window. Pourchaire will pit first. Yellow, sector 1. It's not us, though. It's not us.
Currently yellow at 7.
Perez
Let's
with the
take a
crash.
look at the replay. Okay, here's the Ferrari.
Just lost it
Dear
under the
me,
wet conditions.
they
Oh,
weren't
but he
even
lost the wing as
expecting
well.
that.
Track is down to 1.01.
I think it will be dry.
This is not good for us. I mean, it could be good in that others might try to pit for softs. And if somebody does, the rain's going to pick up again. But overall, it's not good. We've got the fresh tires, though. It's going to offset a little bit. You can see how we're not able to overtake Stroll. Until we finally do. Standard. Porsche up to P6 now, meanwhile. And the rain has picked up again, so nobody opted to pit.
Just do lifting coasting.
Yeah. But that extra pit stop is already, starting to pay off. Everybody else hanging on way too long with these. Guan Yu Zhou pits, now 5 and 6.
That sounds like someone's gone wide there.
Albin ran wide. Doohan went around him. That's how we went from a car between us to nose to tail. Verstappen and Stroll now pitting. Everybody's putting on fresh intermediates. They're just doing it much later than we are. And overall, that made our pace so much better. Down to 2 cars ahead of us that have yet to pit. Magnussen and Sainz. Verstappen is now P5. There goes Magnussen. And we both are passing Sainz on track. So we're back to a 1-2 position. And multiple cars have crashed. We have a VSC.
That's a VSC.
It's not a time to pit. Sainz will benefit from it.
Who's that just...
Well, maybe not.
Here's the replay.
He's not in a
Watch
good position
this.
here.
There's Leclerc.
Leclerc. And the Aston Martin. Oh, the Aston Martin just slides off into him. I don't know why. I guess carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is the reason for the VSC. Stroll picks up the penalty. Norris and Leclerc both into the pits. So you have Sainz, you have Bottas. Bottas should have. Well, I guess he would have been just ahead of it. All right, now everybody, excuse me, everybody has pit.
We've had a crash.
So Magnussen, who was right behind us, Magnussen with crash. Magnussen with crash. The guy who was right behind us is now 12 seconds back and resumes racing. Sainz is now 7. Look how far ahead we are. I mean,
Boxing
2, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 0. It's a little early, but by the time we're coming back out on track, we're almost down to that 1.0. 1.07 before we even enter the track. 1.06. 105. 104. Porsche, it's only a couple corners. 103. Poor Mercedes, Ocon, Gasly getting held up behind us. 101. Yeah, you only had to get through a few corners, and now it's dry.
DRS enabled.
Now it's dry, and just like that, DRS enabled. Let's not push hard. Let's go standard.
Okay, back off.
And Doohan, meanwhile, had close to half a lap to go. But Porsche, after the pit stop, didn't even complete a quarter of a lap. But we'll see where his position is versus Doohan's. I'm guessing he's gaining pretty rapid. Well, he's not gaining rapidly right now. Look, these guys are still right on his tail. 24.5, 24.6. I mean, how are we that slow, Porsche? 24.7. There's no track rubber. 24.9.
Hey, friend. Watch the white line on exit.
25. We're losing ground still. Really surprised by this. It's because there's no track rubber, there's no grip. Now grip is normal. Grip is normal. So it took a little longer than I expected. Sainz and Verstappen also pitting. But Porsche continued to lose ground. He's going to come out in P2. Doohan's going to come out ahead of him. 2.43 for Doohan's stop. We are gaining ground now, but we are going to come out behind our teammate. 4 seconds behind him. 3.5. Okay, 3.5 back. But the tiptoe until the grip got to normal. So it wasn't just about getting under the 1.0. We had to wait for the track grip to come up a little bit. And that's where suddenly he started to take off and close things up real fast. Verstappen, P3. No reason to push. We are comfortable. Now we just need to get to the end of this race. Dewan leads. Pourchaire is second. He's now within 3 seconds of his teammate. He does have the better components. He still has a chance.
Fastest lap.
Field very spread. Pourchaire just 1.5 back. Lap 52. Lap 53. 1.1 back. If he was within DRS there, he would have had a chance, but now he is. It's a little late for it. I'm not going to do anything special for either driver. Just let him finish as is. Pourchaire closing him down more and more. 6/10 behind. He's going to have DRS here. He's got it to 0.4, but it's too late. It's too late. Dewan takes the win ahead of Pourchaire. Back-to-back wins for Jack Dewan. Back-to-back P2s for Pourchaire. But that for him, all the way from P19. Sorry, P20. He gains 19, that is. Oh, gains 18. 4 races remain, and we have a healthy cushion. It may or may not be enough points yet, but I'm assuming we're going to take points at least one more time. It's really close to being enough with 4 races to go, both in the drivers and the constructors. Dewan is closing in on Pourchaire now that he's not making the mistakes a little bit, but he got fortunate in that last one as I pit Pourchaire 1 lap too early. Dewan was pit at the perfect time, and I thought Pourchaire would actually benefit from it as we dropped below that 1.0 a quarter of the way into that lap, and Dewan had a half a lap to go, still on the intermediates, but it was about track grip, not about that 1.0, and that track grip took that little bit longer, where for Dewan it fell perfectly to when he exited pit road. Meanwhile, Pourchaire had to drive around most of a lap without the track grip being where it needed to be, and ultimately was slower over the course of that entire lap by a good 5 seconds. Pourchaire then proceeded to close up Dewan right down to the end and was just a few tenths of a second behind him at the finish line. That's how much faster he was compared to Dewan. So, and then of course there was that whole P20 to P1 thing prior to that 1 5-second slow lap that he went through. But it's a 1-2 finish for us. Pourchaire now over 300 points, and we are closing in on 600. I'm going to go straight to the race for the last 4 races of the year. I'm not going to bother with that last qualifying. We're going to make things quick so that we can get into that next season, and we will have at least 2 races per episode. So we've got 2 episodes left to wrap up this season and seemingly wrap up this championship as we're over 200 points ahead now. That's going to do it for this one. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.